Hey guys, my name is Rai. Today I wanted to walk through how I did my plus 17 Priory on my Preservation Evoker. In this key I'm running 35% haste, which is the highest haste I've run all season and probably since I've started Prez, but I did want to give it a try just to see how it felt like. I don't really recommend doing this if you're looking at my Radar IO page. This was more just to see if, some of the haste stacking could get through some of the more difficult encounters in this key, especially to do with single target and triage healing. In this route, we are skipping the first 4 with a misery skip, meaning that our BDH is going to use Sigil of Misery, he's going to Shadow Meld, and we're going to Invispod past the middle here. If you do have a Priest as opposed to a Preservation Evoker, you can Mind Stew this, but because I'm on my Evoker, we cannot. We are going to pull the Guard Captain here with all these mobs, and I'm going to immediately start thinking about the healing ramp that I need in this pack. Similar to some of my other videos, you're going to notice a lot too that these pulls require a lot of communication and a lot of pre-planning from our team stops. For this first Guard Captain hit, I am hitting Zephyr, putting out Echoes, and immediately going to that lifebind for that first release. And the predominant reason why is I want to make sure that I can get all of our healing covered through the random shoots on the group, plus the Guard Captain's AoE. Because there's no Knight in this pull, this is a lot easier for me to heal as I don't have to worry about cauterizing anybody, so I can immediately just go into a lifebind for every big AoE and then hit something big like here I hit Emerald Communion. This pack does get absolutely obliterated, and because there's very limited footmen in this pool, this does mean that they're not going to be using those defends. One trick to note is when you have to deal with defends from the footmen, you need to make sure that you are stopping them and you keep things like Tail Whip and Wing Buffet on cooldown to make sure that the defense aren't going off. They're going to drastically slow down the pull speed of this pull, and if you do the night pull, and I think a lot of people don't really recognize the reason why that pulls some M6 forever is the footmen aren't getting their defense stops. For each footman defend active, the team is going to be doing 25% damage less to all mobs. In the second pull here, we are going to be fighting some Lynxes and as well as the bleed jump. Here you can see that anytime a Lynx jumps out, I'm just making sure that I heal up my team with something like an Echo, a Bird Embrace, or a Spirit Bloom. I'm not too worried about this trash pack, and you're probably not used to this one as it's not played that often, but my team does play it here and it is very fast for timer. As you can see, my team does, take some damage. I to quickly top them, and if I do get picked by the mini boss AoE, I'm picking something like Renewing Blaze or Obsidian Scales. The actual real strategy in here is, you want to actually keep the mini boss as close as you can to melee without it jumping too far, so your melee DPS and your tank have more uptime. If you're playing with the Vengeance Demon Hunter, they really like building up Frailty to make sure that they would take reduced damage, and that's going to also be their Reaver's Glaive target, which means that, it jumping away can really, really hurt them in terms of living. So usually what I try to do is I try to stay close to this mini boss, use a Warp Blink if I need to get out, and then as well rotate things like Obsidian Scales and Renewing Blaze to make sure I get through this bleed. If it does go on my team, remember I do have Cauterize every 1 minute, and if I need to, I can use it either on myself or another team member. You'll see here that I also use things like my Hover DR, which is from Warp, which reduces the damage I take by 20% every time I press Hover. If you are playing Chrono Warden, this is de facto kind of in your tree, and I'd really recommend doing it just to kind of reduce the oncoming damage of things like casts and bleeds. In the next pull, we are going to be walking in and doing a pretty massive pull here, which I probably wouldn't recommend in your bugs. We're going to be pulling double Light Spawn and the mini boss, and we're going to be coordinating stops here. You can see my tank goes in, I time dilated him, but he still does cheats, and now we're getting in the mini boss. Anytime you're fighting double light spawn, I would treat this like a full healing ramp and make sure you have something ready like Stasis, Tip to Scales, and as well tons of available healing with your double empowereds. If you ever do get targeted by a light spawn, you should alternate things like Renewing Blaze or Obsidian Scales, and you should make sure that you have tons of healing available for your party. You'll see here that I'm holding on to any of my healing ramps needed, and if I'm looking to see if I need to use Bird Embrace, Emerald Communion, Echo, Bird Embrace, Emerald Communion, or if I need to use something like Rewind. We are fighting a ton of casters, so this can get pretty chaotic, but I am watching my Druid as he does get fixated, he hits Shadow Meld, and now I'm hitting my basic healing ramp with some Echoes, I Bird Embrace, I heal up with some Life Spark procs, and I'm just watching very carefully to see if I need to slam any of those healing CDs. Contrary to popular understanding, Prez actually has very good single target healing, just due to the Golden Hour interaction with Echo Reversion and as well Spirit Bloom. Remember, Verdant Embrace too, with the lifebind effect, especially when on yourself, can give you an absolute ton of free healing, so making sure that you abuse that on these pulls, which is Echo, Echo, Verdant Embrace, and then any combination of your healing spells, such as Emerald Communion, Life Spark procs from your Life Spark talent, Spirit Bloom, or that Echo Reversion. I did make a mistake here, as we did make a call to commit to killing the mini-boss. Our druid did have health bot there, but I did let him die, and I think ultimately I could have saved him. Although that was only one of 3 deaths in this key, every death on this key level does kind of matter, and I want to make sure that, I'm playing pretty well to make sure we avoid that kind of thing. We did unfortunately have a light spawn, and now we're going to be fighting Tainer. As you can see through most of this trash, I'm holding, somewhere in the midst of 2 mil HPS, so it's definitely not like a light amount of healing requirement, but at the same time, you need to make sure that you're kind of treating a lot of this trash with these casters and these light spawns like you would like a rot healing fight. I think the biggest thing I see some preservation evokers do really, really wrong is that they basically go in and they just kind of reactive heal. Versus on a lot of this trash, you should be having echoes out at all times and getting ready for that Echo, 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 Lifebind with Verdant Embrace, Spirit Bloom, Dream Breath, or Emerald Communion. Anytime there's multiple casters out, you should also be doing anything you can to help your team. Some of these pulls in Priory can be very, very deadly, and if you're not very careful at keeping things out, like your Obsidian Scales, your New Blaze, your Rescue, or your Time Dilate on yourself, it's possible that you go down to multiple kicks or multiple hits. I almost let my tank die there to Dispel, as we did let the Cinderstorm go off. One trick to note is when you're fighting this kind of pack, especially if you're fighting Tainer, one kick that you can actually sacrifice is the mini-boss kick. Tainer's Cinder Blast is dispellable, and on the tank it will not kill them, so if you need to choose between kicking a Fireball on your DPS and the Cinder Blast in your tank, I would go for the Fireball on your DPS, and as you see there, for the 4th or 5th time this key, I end up dispelling the Cinder Blast. You see that Defend go off, and we are stopping it to make sure that we can kill off this mini-boss. One problem we did have in this pull is we did miss a kick and a stop. As a result, Tainer did get healed up to 50%. This did cost us quite a bit of time in this pull, but we do manage to recover okay. In this route, we're playing 0 Knights, meaning that we are going to be skipping that patrol. We do want to get in a position where we're going to be pulling the boss pretty shortly, as we do have Bloodlust in 4 minutes. We want that up for the Paladin pull, but right now we're not too rushed, as we did save a ton of time by doing the double light spawn mini boss pull, which saves you almost an entire minute in the dungeon. Whenever I'm not healing on this trash, you can see that I'm pretty much just alternating using Disintegrate for staying mana neutral, using my Energy Loop talent, or just hitting Living Flame or Chrono Flame on these mobs. This is a key where I alternate a lot between using my Life Spark procs defensively and offensively, as free ones can go right into the boss or mobs, and some of them are going to have to go into my team in conjunction with a Lifebind window. This is a key where Lifebind is exceptionally powerful, and that Life Spark proc in Lifebind can be the difference of your team living or dying. This first boss, I choose to only use 1 set of healing CDs. The biggest thing is that I have to think about what I'm doing after this pull. After this boss is the big Paladin pull, which I'm not sure if we're going to be pulling all of it or only a couple at the same time, so I'm only going to get 1 Tip the Scales use on this fight, and if I really need to, 2 Stasis uses. I do hit Tip the Scales on the pull for damage, and I start ramping for the first big AoE. Anytime this Holy Radiance comes out, I'm always alternating something like Obsidian Scales, Zephyr, or Renewing Blaze, and making sure that I have a regular healing ramp. You can see here that I do have Stasis stored at the bottom of my screen with a 2-charge Spirit Bloom, a 1-charge Dream Breath, and a Temporal Anomaly. The time between the Holy Radiances is too long to fully store a Stasis if you do it properly, so you can either use it, kind of defensively for tank healing here, or to kind of get your team topped up in between from these fixates. The scariest thing on this boss is Preservation Evoker is the overlap of Holy Radiance with a fixate. Sometimes you have to get pretty lucky. You can see here that my DK actually gets the fixate as opposed to, my druid or my mage, so we do luck out there, and I do hit rewind just to get us topped. Remember, what I'm really thinking about on this boss is the tools that I need for the Paladin pull after this. I only want to send Tip the Scales once. I already committed rewind, so it's going to come up late on the Paladin pull, and I need to be cognizant that if I'm going to send Emerald Communion, when I think it's going to come up on the pull after. I do top up my druid here, and I'm dispelling my tank and waiting to see when he needs his cauterize. Our mage does get the fixate there, and you can see how incredibly potent that Call of Ysara Life Spark proc is to keep him alive. I do slam Emerald Communion just to help our tank out and the rest of our team, but you can definitely notice how powerful Call of Ysara is on a boss fight like this. When you don't have a lot of instant healing on Prez because of our ramp up value, things like, those instant cast Living Flames in conjunction with Call of Ysara from Burden Embrace is a great way to instantly top a party member. This is a lot faster than Spirit Bloom, and it saves you from having to use something like Tip the Scales, like Emerald Communion, or like Rewind. If you are in communication with your team, remember you can tell them to Shadow Meld. Some of the people that I've been playing with lately haven't been tracking a lot of defensive usage, especially in LFG, and I think a lot of people don't know how many mechanics are actually Shadow Meldable. But instead of popping a defensive ability on the fixate from the Savage Melee on this boss, you can just press Shadow Meld and it'll completely negate the mechanic in whole. You can see that the mage here hit Greater Invis, and it was completely negated. For this last Holy Radiance coming up in 10 seconds, I really want to be careful about what I spend. I am watching my tank because I want to make sure he doesn't cheat, making sure that if he needs Time Dilate, it's all his, which is coming up in 11 seconds, and I'm prepping for this last Holy Radiance with Echo, 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 Burn Embrace, Spirit Bloom, Temporal Anomaly, and Dream Breath. You can see here that that healing combo is more than enough on this key level to be able to get through that pattern, but I would recommend starting the pattern late. Because of how long the Holy Radiance cast is, if you start life binding or spirit blooming too early, it could result in your team falling behind or perhaps perishing on this encounter. Remember, this is also a great fight too to use things like your Zephyr, and if you need from your team, call for things like AMC, Mass Barrier, etc. Although Prez can heal all the paladins in this dungeon, we do decide that we're only going to break this pull up a little bit and not pull them all at once. The reason why is because we have infinite time, as we were very, very fast in the first split from saving time with that double light spawn mini boss pull. So we're only going to be pulling the 4 paladins here, which makes this a lot easier for me. I think we kill off a caster and then chain. As this paladin pack runs in, I'm starting to think about my ramp, and this whole room, which I can show in a later video, is actually completely healable with 7 paladins on Prez. You can see that I echo, 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 Burn Embrace, Tip the Scale, Spirit Bloom, TA, and then I'm waiting for the next damage event before I press Mind Power. You can see that I don't intentionally release my stasis or press any of my healing too early because I know all of my passive healing is going to be able to deal with a lot of the healing in these pulls. As these paladins and these templars go down, we are chaining the rest of the paladins. I echo, 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 Burn Embrace, queue up a Temporal Anomaly, I Fire Breath, and now I'm just looking to deal with some of the passive healing. I do finally release that stasis here. I start queuing up for my next defensive ability here with Echo, 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 Burn Embrace, and my team is pretty much topped just from the passive healing. I do hit Emerald Communion, as Emerald Communion doubles as not only a defensive but a massive healing ramp. Remember, with the talent loadout that I recommend, I do take Emerald Vitality, which does increase the healing received, the health increase from Emerald Communion by 20%. For 15 seconds after you press Emerald Communion, you're going to have 20% increased health, which is an insane defensive on Preservation. Not to note, it's also due to Life Force Mender, a DPS increase, and a healing increase. This makes your Emerald Communion a lot more powerful and very, very good in these kind of areas, as the 20% health can help you live any sort of combination of maybe like a caster bolt on you plus a paladin AoE. I am prepping with Echo, 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 Burn Embrace, and I hit my Spirit Bloom to top my party. I use a Life Spark proc on my Druid, and immediately I hit Rewind there to get us stable. There hasn't really been a scary point in this room because we've played this very, very safe. If we did choose to play all the paladins together, I still would have had a pretty easy time. I have healed this whole room multiple times on 17, and I think I have it botted somewhere as well, kind of good for reference. Maybe I'll post it on my channel just to show you how you do it. But as you can see, the healing cadence is actually very easy, even dealing with 3 or 4 paladins at a time. If you're dealing with 3 paladins, it's actually probably the easiest cadence, as you could use the first one with Echo, 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 Burden Embrace, Spirit Bloom, follow up with a TA, a Dream Breath, or etc. And you can see that I'm timing every single one of those Divine Tolls to end and subsequently cast with my Spirit Bloom. Our mage was pretty impressed with this, as he thinks this room is like super free with Preservation as compared to Disc. Even though Oracle Disc Priest is insanely strong and probably the best healer in the game right now, this is kind of a cool niche for Prez, as my teams always feel very safe when fighting Paladins. My tank doesn't like it as much though, because I sometimes don't include him in my healing ramp. He's not really a big fan of that. I am watching my Druid here, as he does get a cast on him, but I do rescue myself defensively, and now we're finishing off the pack before we get to the boss. Our timer at this point is immaculate. I'm pretty good on mana, and so far we've had no real hiccups other than maybe healing the Purifier and the mini-boss, which probably cost us about a minute. As that last Sacred Toll goes off, you can see I use that same combo, that Echo, 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 Burn Embrace, Spirit Bloom, and we're going to be on to the second encounter of this dungeon, which is Baron Braunpike. Baron Braunpike is going to follow a very similar healing pattern, and you're going to see how I use Stasis, Emerald Communion, Zephyr, Obsidian Scales, and Renewing Blaze on this encounter to get through each of the Castigator Shields and the Soak AoE. One thing you're going to note is when the Castigator Shields come out, I'm going to be prepping that Echo, Burden, Embrace, Spirit Bloom combo with my Stasis and then releasing it for the big AoE Soak. Any single time the AoE Soak goes out, we're going to have our Death Knight actually soak it with AMS. When he doesn't have AMS, it's going to be a group soak. But for the most part, whenever he's soaking, he's going to be going in and breaking it very, very quickly, and I'm going to be hitting Time Dilate on him to make sure that the damage threshold of AMS is higher. Remember, if you use AMS with Time Dilation, it's going to have a lot longer of a time to break, as he's going to be taking 50% reduced damage. That cap on that AMS is going to be a lot higher. You can see now that I do have Stasis stored for the next set of hammers. I did use that Echo, 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 Burn Embrace, Spirit Bloom to get stopped, and now for the next Castigator Shield, it's going to be my release. One cool thing you could do too is if you want to help your DPS with uptime is you can rescue them out of the Castigator Shield, though not necessarily. You might get a few thumbs up from your teammates. As you can see, I hit that Burn Embrace, I hit that Stasis Release, and my team is stopped. We are waiting a couple seconds here just for that AMS from my DK on the left hand side of the screen. As he does hit it, I start that Echo, 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 Burn Embrace, Spirit Bloom, and my team is already dealt with the most difficult part of the encounter. For the next set of soaks, remember, I don't have Stasis now or Tip to Scales. Because I used them on the previous two, I'm going to have to be a little bit more crafty here. For the Castigator Shield themselves, I am hitting a Natty Spirit Bloom, and I decide not to lifebind it. And for now, I'm throwing a TA into melee, throwing out some Grace Periods, Echo, 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 Burn Embrace, and making sure that I keep my team topped up for this soak. At this point in time, my mage, my tank, and my DK have a debuff, so I decide to use Echo, Echo, Burn Embrace, and Emerald Communion to help them through a little bit of that rot damage. Right now, I do have 20% increased healing or HP, although it's not really matter too much. I kind of use the Emerald Communion defensively just to make sure that our team is covered. I do hit a Life Spark proc there, I hit Stasis, I do hit Tip to Scales, and I start ramping for this explosion. As the soak goes off, I'm releasing my Stasis and going back to hitting Disintegrate on the boss to stay a little bit mana neutral. Coming up here, the only things I have left are Rewind coming up for the set if I need, Tip the Scales in 34 seconds. I don't have Rescue, I have one charge of Hover, and I do have Renewing Blaze and Zephyr. As you can see here, the Castigator Shield comes out, I Echo, 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 Burn Embrace, and now I'm setting up my next healing ramp with a couple more Echoes as my DK is getting ready to soak. I had Echo on my Druid, Echo on my Mage, Echo on my DK, and now I'm going to be hitting that Lifebind window. Lifebind hits, I quickly hit that Spirit Bloom, and my team is instantly topped. The boss is at 150 million, and now we're making sure that we are going to be committing to killing the boss instead of doing another set of soaks. I don't actually end up ramping for that Castigator Shield, though it doesn't matter too much because we're not soaking. It would have been a little bit helpful for me to at least get some Echoes out and hit that Verdant earlier. What I am concerned with a little bit right now is just my healer damage on this fight, as I want to make sure that we can kill off the boss before our time to soak runs out and we perish. With 13 minutes left in the key, our timer is pretty healthy. We do have to play all the trash up top, and I need to make sure that I'm dealing with some of the most difficult pulls in the dungeon from a healer perspective. I would say this entire key is very dependent on your tank and your healer. I think your tank's cadence is critically important, and your healer's ability to communicate as well as deal with the very difficult healing ramps in this dungeon is going to be your checkpoint in making sure you time this key. We do have 2 deaths upstairs. One of them is like very much my fault as I kind of zoned out, but most of this trash becomes like very easy for Prez, as you see that same pattern going to be followed over and over again. I'm basically using Dream Breath to cover rot damage, Echo, 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 Verdant Spirit Bloom to cover the Paladin tools, and if I'm ever fighting 2 Paladins at once, just the Echo, Echo, Echo Verdant is going to cover the entire toll damage, while Spirit Bloom is going to cover the rest of it. I do hit the TA here, I hit the Dream Breath, and my team is on its way to being topped. As we get upstairs, we're going to be doing a Lightspawn double Paladin pack. This pack is traditionally pretty hard, and you want to make sure that you have something like Stasis, Emerald Communion, or Rewind just to make sure you can get through it. Anytime you are targeted by a Lightspawn, remember that you definitely want a defensive CD such as Renewed Blaze, Obsidian Scales, or both. I decide to commit Zephyr early here, so I have it later in the dungeon. I rescue my Druid, I lifebind, and I'm using as much triage healiness as I possibly can to help get through these pulls. I get critically unlucky and get targeted by a Lightspawn again, but I am able to get through it with the Call of Ysara Lifespark proc on myself. There's a lot of chatting about dropping Lifespark, about dropping Call of Ysara, and I can't emphasize enough how insanely powerful Lifespark procs are with Call, especially in a key like this, where they can basically cover an entire damage event on their own. I'd be very careful about spending your Lifespark procs here defensively, and using them a lot if you need to for the Purifying Beams, or even so, what you're going to see sometimes is that Echo, 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 Burn Embrace, Lifespark proc into my teammates for an insane Lifebind ramp. My Druid is an absolute gamer, and I told him to bear, and he sat bear the entire thing even with time dilation just to make sure he stayed alive. We do manage to get through this pack without any fatalities, but we are going to have 2 up here, I think on the pack on the right, as we fight double Lightspawn. As we get into the pools through the doorway, you're going to notice we start to fight these Risen Mages and these Footmen. When dying, these Risen Footmen do a ton of damage, and on plus 17, without any damage reduction ability, they're going to hit for like 20 or 30% of your health. So that in conjunction with the Sacred Toll is going to be life ending without a big damage reduction effect like Obsidian Scales. I think this honestly might be the hardest pull in the dungeon right here, is the double Lightspawn Footman pack. You're going to be seeing here that I set up that Stasis with that Echo, 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 Burn Embrace, Spirit Bloom, TA, Dream Breath, just to be able to handle some of the oncoming damage. We do start coordinating stops as well on these firebolt volleys, and now we're watching to make sure that we can get through these double fixates on top of these volleys. I am getting bolted here, I do release my stasis, and my team is more than topped. Remember, these light spawns are going to start to die here, and as well as these footmen, so I need to make sure that I'm using enough healing to get through this. And right about now, I think is when I end up dying, I think we have a light spawn proc on top of a Purify here, and I go down. Unfortunately, we did have a huge miscomm on that light spawn and ended up healing the entire pack. This is now the 3rd time in the dungeon we've healed the entire set of mobs due to miscommunication. And as you can see in the top right hand corner of my screen, the time is about 1 o'clock in the morning for me and 4 AM for a lot of my team. My brain kind of shuts off there, and I do go down to the Purify, so we do call for a battle res. As soon as I get up, I am making sure that I'm starting ramping on my team with that Echo Burn Embrace, rescuing my mage, and keeping him topped to make sure that our team doesn't go down. We rescue the we heal the light spawn again due to our errors of miscommunication, and at the same time, we are going back in to fight this back for the 3rd time. My druid does have meld available, I tell him to sit on it, but we are making sure that I can get through all of these casts on him as well as the shadow melds. I do get cast on right at the end here, and I'm making sure that I have enough healing to kind of just to get through this pack. As this pack's been living forever, you can see that I've been struggling a little bit to kind of get proper cadence with my cooldowns, but even despite the 1 death, we're able to stay alive for quite a while. Remember now, we are going to be fighting this Paladin in conjunction with the Risen Footman. As soon as this Footman dies, it's going to deal a large amount of AoE, and it's going to hit the same time as Divine Toll, which immediately does kill me. We decide, because we only have one res left, that I'm going to release and run back. This means that my team needs to stay alive for a minute while that Paladin AoE is going off. Remember, this dungeon can still be really deadly at the end, so making sure that you have a res for last boss, or even this mini boss pull, could be the difference between life and death in case you make a mistake. I immediately come back into that Echo, Burn Embrace, Spirit Bloom, and make sure that my team is stopped to heal with this last night. I think the scariest thing about these pulls are again that combination of Risen Footman plus Divine Toll or Purify. If you can find out ways to get through it and save things like Obsidian Scales and Zephyr for those overlaps, you're going to have a lot better of a time than I did here, as I don't think this was my best performance key upstairs. I think one of those deaths was completely out of my control, but the second one was definitely, I kind of fell apart on. This is going to be the last pull of our dungeon, and we are going to be pulling all of these footmen in with the mini boss. Remember, these will also explode when they die, so I need to make sure that I have ample healing to be able to deal with that at the end. On the go, I immediately fuck up my stasis already, as I stasis before having Dream Breath, which means I'm going to be losing entire Dream Breath use on this pack. It doesn't matter too much though, because in Tip the Scales Bloodlust, my Verdant Embrace is a 6-second cooldown, which means that I'm going to have a lifebind window for the entire duration of this Bloodlust pull. As you can see, I Verdant again, it comes back in 5 seconds, and my lifebind's just permanently on my party. This is a very cozy pull for preservation with Lust, and again, remember at the start of the dungeon, I shared that I was running 35%? For packs like this, where you can keep a permanent lifebind uptime, you're going to have like an insane time. I'm sitting on Emerald Communion still if I need to, and it didn't even matter as we were able to kill off that pack very quickly. We are going to be pulling these 4 mobs into the last boss for some Arcane Mage funnel, and now I'm going to be showing you the tricks that you need to do to get through this boss. This boss has essentially 2 phases in it, as well as the intermission phase, and the first phase, what's most deadly about it, is the overlap of the Inner Fire Shield and his Blazing Light AoE. When Inner Fire goes on from the boss, you're going to be dealing with periodic ticking damage from the boss every couple seconds. This does overlap with Blinding Light, which is the big boss AoE, so you want to make sure that you start ramping a little bit of healing here and there, and keeping things out for the Inner Fire overlap. You can see that for Inner Fire, I always put out my Dream Breath, I start using my Lifebind ramp, and I'm trying to make sure that I keep my team top where I can. I do massively fuck up a stasis here, as I didn't mean to press it at all, but I think I accidentally hit it. For that Blinding Light, I pre-Spirit Bloom, and now I just wasted one of my most important healing cooldowns of the entire encounter. Lucky for me, this phase isn't too difficult, and just getting a Lifebind in, as well as making sure that I can, Spirit Bloom, and as well keep Dream Breath hot to my party is going to be more than fine. I do Zephyr for the Blinding Light, I'm turned around, I Echo, Burn Embrace, Spirit Bloom, and my party stopped off. One thing to note is if you can, it would be highly recommended, at least for me, to make sure that you save a big healing cooldown for the intermission. You'll see here, as the ads exploded as we brought them onto the boss, I did commit Emerald Communion just to get us stabilized, as we are going to be dealing with a Blinding Light here in a second. It's really important that your team, especially if they don't have defensives, is that they're completely top of the Blinding Light, because if it ever does coincide with the Inner Fire, your team's going to be taking a ton of damage, and it's going to be very hard to heal up. This is a good example of a fight where you don't always need to be lifebinding, just sometimes your occasional healing from your Spirit Bloom and your Dream Breath is going to be more than enough to be able to top some of the incoming damage. Blinding Light's coming out, we're turning away, I'm throwing some Echoes out, and I lifebind for the intermission. I do have Rewind available, and if I need to, when we get up there, I can definitely call for things like AMZ or Darkness. We do AMZ, I do put a couple Echoes out, I lifebind, and now I'm watching until my Dream Breath comes up. I do Big Spirit Bloom, I do TA, and I do Dream Breath. We have pushed the boss in, and now I'm making sure that if I need to, I'm helping CC these Nephilites. In this phase, you're going to be dealing with the exact same healing cadence as you were in the first phase. Remember, when Inner Fire comes out, you're going to have pulsing AoE damage, and when that blinding light happens, you want to turn around and keep some healing ramped to be able to deal with the incoming big hit. I do have that stasis with Tip the Scales ready to go and release it immediately so that my team is ramped for the Inner Fire conjunction with that blinding light. Press is a pretty easy time on this fight, and I think it's like it's pretty novel to heal. However, there's one important trick to note. You actually don't want to be kicking this boss at all unless you need to reset its spell queue. If you don't kick in the first phase, she'll never actually do Inner Fire before the Holy Radiance, which reduces the healing requirement of this fight quite a bit. If those things ever get lined up and you're looking at the timer on the right hand side of the screen where it says Inner Fire and then immediately you get Blinding Light, that's when you're going to want to pop big defensives. That's where I would recommend using Zephyr. That's where I'd recommend also pressing Obsidian Scales and making sure that you have something like Emerald Communion or Rewind to be able to handle the very large incoming damage before that combination goes out. You'll see here that I'm hitting that lifebind with that Echo, 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 keeping my team topped, turning away, hitting Rewind just for fun even though we had Mass Barrier, and the boss dies. This is a pretty fun key. It's probably my favorite of the entire season on Prez, and I think too, like, Prez is exceptionally good in here. I think there are a lot of things that you can do in this key to be a real team player, including using Oppressing Roar with your BDH for a longer silence sigil, using your stops to help prevent some of those kicks, and as well, being able to properly heal things like the Paladins and the Entrash. I think once you get this dungeon down, you're going to feel like an all-star, and using some of the combinations in here, maybe not running 35% haste like I did, but definitely abusing lifebind a lot in this dungeon is going to help you a ton. I do hope to post a short video on how to heal all the 7 Paladins on 17 on Prez, and I think it might be a really good short. If you think I missed anything in this key, or if there's anything that you're looking forward to seeing in the future, feel free to drop something in the comments, as I would like to get some feedback and post more content that you think is going to be most applicable to you. Thanks for all of the support. I appreciate the viewership and appreciate all the love in the past couple months as the channel continues to grow. Feel free to join my Discord or come to drop by and say hi on Twitch when you have a moment, as I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again, good luck with your vaults, good luck with your keys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.